If you're training hard, running a business, working long hours, and trying to optimize your health and basically expecting your body and brain to perform at high level every single day, there's one pathway I think you should know about. It's called NRF2, and you've probably never heard of it. But NRF2 helps control one of your body's most important defense systems against oxidative stress. And here's where it gets interesting. Exercise creates oxidative stress. Stressful work days create physiological stress. Poor sleep adds another layer. Environmental exposures, even producing energy inside your cells, creates reactive oxygen species. None of this is inherently bad. The question is, can your body keep up? Because when the amount of stress you're creating consistently exceeds your capacity to recover from it, that's when things can start to change. Your recovery slows down, your energy becomes less consistent, brain fog creeps in, you're sore for longer, and suddenly the body that used to keep up with everything you're throwing at it isn't responding quite the same way. So today I want to explain what's actually happening underneath the surface. And let's start with something that gets completely oversimplified online. Oxidative stress isn't automatically bad. In fact, some oxidative stress is essential. When you train, particularly when you train intensely, you temporarily increase the production of reactive oxygen species. And most people know these as free radicals. And we tend to think free radicals bad, antioxidants good. But physiology is much more nuanced than that. That temporary increase in oxidative stress actually acts as a signal. It tells your body, we need to adapt to this. Your cells respond, your antioxidant defense system adapts. Your mitochondria adapt, your muscles adapt, and over time, you become more resilient. This concept is sometimes referred to as hormesis. A small, manageable stressor creates an adaptive response that ultimately makes the system stronger. It's one of the fundamental reasons exercise is so beneficial. So my goal with clients isn't to eliminate oxidative stress. That would make absolutely no sense. The goal is to make sure your capacity to recover keeps pace with the amount of stress you're creating. And for high performers, that's where things get interesting. Think about the total physiological load you're creating across a normal week. Maybe you're doing 5 hard training sessions. You've got a high rocks event you're preparing for. You're running a business. You're responsible for employees. You've got deadlines. You've got kids. You're sleeping 6.5 hours because you're trying to fit everything in. You have a couple of drinks on Saturday night. You're traveling, you're exposed to environmental pollutants. Then Monday morning comes around and you go straight back into another hard training session. Your body doesn't compartmentalize those things. It doesn't say, that's exercise stress, so we'll put that over here. That's physiological stress, so we'll put that somewhere else. Your physiology has to respond to all of it. There's something I talk about with clients all the time. The training program might look completely reasonable in isolation, but once we add their sleep, their nutrition, work demands, travel, inflammation, and everything else happening in their life, the picture can look very different. And that's why 2 people can follow the exact same training program and have completely different responses. One thrives, the other starts feeling exhausted. And this brings us to NRF2. NRF2 stands for nuclear factor, erythroid 2 related factor 2. You absolutely don't need to remember that. What I want you to remember is this. NRF2 acts like a master switch for cellular defense. Under normal conditions, NRF2 is kept relatively quiet inside the cell, and when the cell detects oxidative or electrophilic stress, that signaling changes. NRF2 can move into the nucleus of the cell and interact with the DNA to increase the expression of protective genes. And those genes help regulate systems involved in antioxidant defense, glutathione metabolism, detoxification, cellular protection, and the body's response to oxidative stress. So NRF2 isn't simply another antioxidant. It's helping to tell your body to make and regulate its own defense systems. And that's an important distinction. Some of the systems downstream of NRF2 include enzymes involved in glutathione metabolism and antioxidant and detox pathways. And this is why I'm so interested in NRF2 clinically. Instead of thinking, what antioxidant supplement should I take? I want to know, how well is your antioxidant defense system functioning? So you've probably heard of glutathione. It's often called the body's master antioxidant. But glutathione doesn't work alone. You've got an entire antioxidant network. You've got superoxide dismutase, or SOD, and this helps deal with superoxide radicals. You've got glutathione peroxidase, or GPX, which helps to reduce hydrogen peroxide and lipid free radicals. Catalase. You've got glutathione participates in antioxidant defense and detoxification reactions, and these systems work together continuously, and they require resources, and that's the part people often forget. You can't run complex biochemical pathways without adequate nutritional building blocks. So glutathione, for example, is made from 3 amino acids: glutamate, cysteine, and glycine. So when I see someone training incredibly hard while simultaneously restricting calories, under eating protein, and taking a cupboard full of antioxidants, I'm not necessarily thinking, what else can we add? I'm thinking, does this body actually have the resources to recover? So let's talk about genetics. We have this other layer called genetics. This is where 2 people following the same health advice can respond completely differently. When I interpret genetic testing, I'm not looking for one bad gene. I'm looking at pathways, genes involved in antioxidant defense, genes involved in glutathione, genes such as SOD2, GPX, and GST family, alongside the broader pathways involved in inflammation, methylation, and detox. And we're also interested in the regulation of pathways such as NRF2. Your genetics give us a blueprint for where your physiology may operate differently. And that doesn't mean genetic variant guarantees you'll have a problem. Environment matters, nutrition matters, training matters, sleep matters, and your blood work matters. But genetics give us another layer of information. It can help explain why you're responding differently to the person next to you who's apparently doing exactly the same things. And that's ultimately why I use genetic testing. Not to give you more information, but to give us better information about what to do next. So you can support your NRF2. So now the obvious question is, how do we actually support this pathway? And yes, this is where nutrition becomes really important. One of the best research compounds in relation to NRF2 is sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is found in vegetables, cruciferous, particularly broccoli sprouts, and you've also got polyphenols, which are plant compounds found in herbs, green tea, turmeric, curcumin, resveratrol, and compounds with plants such as ginkgo biloba. These compounds are interesting because we're no longer simply talking about them as antioxidants that mop up free radicals. We're looking at how plant compounds interact with cellular signaling and the body's own defense mechanisms. That's a very different conversation, but here's the important part. More isn't actually better. If you're watching this thinking, great, I'll order sulforaphane, curcumin, resveratrol, green tea extract, and glutathione. That's exactly what I don't want you to take from this video, because supplementation still needs context. Your medications matter, your genetics matter, your nutrition matters, your training load matters, and your individual health history matters. Sometimes the most important intervention isn't another supplement. It might be eating enough, getting enough protein, sleeping another hour, reducing your training volume temporarily, or fixing a nutritional deficiency. So that brings us to part 7. What about antioxidants around training? There's another really interesting piece of this conversation. Remember how I said oxidative stress from exercise acts as a signal? That means we don't necessarily want to suppress every part of that signal. There has been research looking at whether high-dose antioxidant supplementation around exercise may interfere with some of the adaptations. And the evidence isn't as simple as saying antioxidants hurt your gains, but it reinforces an important principle. Biology isn't about maximizing everything. It's about balance. The goal isn't maximum antioxidants, maximum training, maximum supplements, maximum sauna, maximum biohacking. The goal is creating the appropriate stimulus and then giving your body what it needs to adapt to that stimulus. That's optimization. So where does blood work fit? So how do I actually apply this clinically? I don't have a routine blood test that tells me, Sarah, this person's NRF2 pathway is functioning at 63%. It doesn't work like that. Instead, we're building a physiological picture. When I review blood work, I might be looking at markers related to inflammation, liver function, iron status, B12 and folate, vitamin D, metabolic markers, sometimes omega-3 status. And then I'm comparing those results with what the person is actually experiencing. How are they recovering? How are they sleeping? What's their training load? What's happening with their energy? What are they eating? What supplements are they taking? Then where appropriate, we can layer genetic testing on top of that. That's where this becomes personalized. So the biggest takeaway, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Stress isn't your enemy. If you're a high performer, stress is probably part of the reason you've achieved what you have. You train hard, you challenge yourself, you build businesses, you push limits, but your ability to continue doing that depends on your capacity to adapt. And that's why pathways like the NRF2 matter. You don't need to become obsessed with one gene or one pathway. You need to understand that underneath your performance is an incredibly complex biological system that requires resources to keep doing what you're asking of it. And high performance isn't just about how much stress you can tolerate. It's about how effectively you can recover, adapt, and come back stronger. If this has made you realize you've been focusing heavily on training and performance but haven't really looked at what's happening underneath the surface, that's exactly the work I do. My name is Sarah Farrugia. I'm a qualified naturopath and founder of Biohacking Naturopath. I work with active people, athletes, business owners, and high performers using blood work, genetic testing, nutrition, and personalized naturopathic medicine to understand the drivers behind your performance. If you would like more information, download my high performance blueprint as a starting point, or book a biohacking strategy call and we can talk more about how I can support you.